Hi, I'm Dr. Lance Knaub, and welcome to Moving Mountains. I'm here today with Reece, founder and CEO of MJ REIT. Chris, nice to have you here today.
Lance, nice to be here. Thank you very much.
So glad that our mutual friend Craig connected us.
Yes, me too. Me too.
You know, just getting to know you already, I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun.
I'm really looking forward to it. We have a lot of ground to cover, so it's going to be hopefully exciting for everybody that tunes in and watches.
Yeah, so you have an interesting background of finance and your newest entrepreneurial venture. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten here and your background, and weave in a little bit personally as well.
Sure, absolutely. Now, I'll start from the business side. I've been in asset management now for almost 30 years, about 28 years. Hopefully it doesn't look like it, right? But for a long time now, so almost 3 decades. And I started out for the first kind of 14 years on the public side of investments, and then transitioned to the private markets about 14 years ago. And what was interesting about that transition is, in the markets today, it's very easy to go out to a Vanguard or a Fidelity and get exposure to bonds or stock at very, very low cost and match the market. But the private market offers investors the potential to earn differentiated returns. And so I worked at a couple of shops along the way, and on the private side, I was with a firm called FS Investments. We launched the first private business development company, raised a bunch of money. We had Blackstone as the initial sub-manager. And there are a couple of things that I learned out of that, which I'll go to in a couple of minutes. But I've been in the space for a long time, and I look back at the opportunity around the marketplace, and I wanted to go out on my own eventually and start something, kind of build something on my own instead of working for. And I've been very lucky to work for some very, very good firms over the years. But I wanted to step out and start my own organization. So I did that in 2022. Congrats. And we'll thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, big step.
Very, very big step. And for those that haven't done that, it's a big step.
For sure.
It's a completely different way of life. And we can, your viewers know this, but from healthcare to salaries to hiring people, firing people, and then on the operational side is a whole new ballgame. So it was a big adventure. It's still a big adventure. So I'll get into a little bit more of the fund in just a second. From a personal standpoint, born and raised in Maryland, kind of grew up, been in the Northeast my entire life. Came to Philadelphia in 1990, went to Drexel undergrad, and then ultimately Villanova for my MBA. So I've been, I guess now you can call me a Philly boy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Where in Maryland?
Frederick, Maryland.
Okay, I grew up in York, so straight up 83 from Baltimore.
Yeah, that's great. And I still try to make my annual pilgrimage for crabs. Okay. So being a Maryland boy, you get those blue crabs, and you gotta love them.
Delicious.
You gotta love them. You gotta love them. And so moved up here, and then really started, as I mentioned, I started actually, I don't think I mentioned it, but I started at Vanguard in the mid-1990s and worked a lot with the indexing team. And so kind of going back to that idea that investors can gain exposure to indices very cheaply today.
Right.
And then as I migrated, as I mentioned some of this, but as I migrated, I was looking for a different opportunity when I left FS Investments, and what really piqued my interest, Lance, was I looked around at a number of different industries, and I focused on and kept coming back to the cannabis industry as an area that suffered from a lack of capital, but yet cannabis still remains one of the fastest growing industries in America.
Right.
And so if you have a really, really strong growth rate and you have a lack of capital to fund that growth rate, typically that's an area where you can earn better risk-adjusted returns for investors.
Okay.
And add to that, there's our third characteristic, which I found amazing because it wasn't prevalent in my prior days, and that is, in cannabis, there is zero to limited institutional involvement. So you don't have the big banks because it's still federally illegal,
Right.
so you don't have the banks coming in and competing on and competing might be the wrong term, because competing for me, but then from an entrepreneurial standpoint, have the ease of obtaining capital.
Right.
And so you put those three characteristics together, and it just led me to really come up with this idea that we can create something really unique here, and we can offer investors a really good solution.
Yeah. So who are you serving now? Who's your the clients, and what are some of your specific offerings?
Yeah, and so we launched MJ REIT in late 2022. So our first full month of performance was in September of 2022. So at the end of April, we finished 20 months of performance. And the typical investor that we find, we're only open to accredited investors, which just means you have a little bit more sophistication in the eyes of the SEC. But generally, it's individuals that want to diversify their real estate portfolio, because at our heart, we're simply a real estate play that we're taking advantage of mispricing in the real estate market because of the lack of capital from cannabis tenants.
Okay.
So we look for investors that have maybe exposure to multifamily residential, and they're looking for another diversifier within the real estate side. And then on the other side, many of the investors, because we distribute monthly income, who are interested in cash flows, turn to funds like ours to really increase their monthly disposable income.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of investors from that front as well.
Okay. So, I mentioned I'm reading Tony Robbins' new book, The Holy Grail of Investing, and he, uses Ray Dalio's term.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you is this fund non-correlated with, real estate then? Is it truly diversified?
It is, and you think about what's going on right now in the real estate market last year, right? So think about what the Fed did, think of where rates went. Rates went up significantly, and that put a lot of stress, in particular on the equity part of the real estate world. And so equity REITs last year were down. Blackstone is a different story. They were down about 1%, but you have other equity REITs that were down 20 to 25, maybe even 30%. But where we come in, we're not on the equity side, and why we're differentiated, and this is really intriguing, especially to me, because when we go out and we finance a piece of real estate, I assume that cannabis goes away. And so all I do is I go out and I finance a piece of commercial real estate where you, Lance, as the owner of that building, have a cannabis tenant. And because of that cannabis tenant, you can't go to the Wells Fargo and JP Morgans to get a loan.
Right.
So we underwrite that loan. It's typically short-term in duration, so think 2 to 4 year maturity. Okay. And we're lending today in the high teens. And while that sounds very expensive for non-cannabis borrowers, within the cannabis space, we're on the lower side of debt options that are available in the marketplace. But what sets us apart is that I assume that cannabis goes away in every transaction. So when you come to me and you want financing, well, I'm not going to give you any value on that property for your cannabis license, which is tied to that property, because I have to assume that I'm going to bring in another industrial tenant. And what I've seen is you and I get together and we buy a building for $2 million. And we might put $6 million of improvements through HVAC, lighting, irrigation, security. And so the building in our mind is worth $8 million, right? Because we paid 2 and then we put $6 million in improvement. But as a lender, I have to assume that the next tenant that comes in doesn't need 14 air conditionings, right? They don't need that high-tech security, so that really doesn't add any value. So from the fund level, I may come in and value that building at $2.5 million. And then at that point, we'll lend up to 70-75% LTV. Right. And that's really what differentiates us in the marketplace, and also it helps de-risk that transaction. Right. So when you talk about real estate and some of what's going on in the multifamily, and a lot of people have exposure obviously to residential, but we've seen some of that go up and down in cycles. But again, we're underwriting, we're not solely debt, but we're about 95% debt in the fund itself. And so we assume, I just assume that I'm gonna come in, provide some financing short term, you're gonna pay me my interest along the way. I have a very, very good downside protection in each one of the deals. And then at the end of our term of that maturity of that loan, we get the capital and we go out and we lend it to another borrower. Okay.
Wow. No, I love your differentiating factor and really how you're protecting for the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, just from an industry standpoint. So I mentioned cannabis is one of the fastest growing industries in America. And you go back, I mean, it's been around for a long time, and illegally.
We have family in Boulder, so I've seen
Okay.
Colorado, before legalization, and and now afterwards, and it's been explosive.
It's taken off across the board. And the interesting part, go back to 1996 in California, they legalized on a medicinal basis. And so in 1996, it begins that kind of legal cannabis movement. Right. And then you kind of go along the timeline, and then 2014, you had Colorado that legalized, and Washington. And now today, if you look at the map, we're at 40 states, DC, and 3 U.S. territories have cannabis that's legal on at least a medicinal basis. So I always look at the Garden State as a good example, since we're here in New Jersey. And you think about cannabis in New Jersey, it was 2018 when cannabis was legalized from a medicinal level.
Right.
And then fast forward April of 22, you went what we call adult use. Some people use recreational, but it's adult use recreational. So in April of 2022, the Garden State legalized for adult use consumption. Why states are doing this is mainly because of tax revenue. I'm in Philadelphia, and it's illegal from an adult use standpoint, but I come across the bridge, and I can go into any one of the dispensaries. I think in the state of New Jersey, you have 136 across the state, but you can go in and buy it, and guess who gets the tax revenue, right? It's the state of New Jersey that gets that tax revenue, which since inception, the state has raised $62 million in tax revenue. So think about the benefits that provides to roads, schools, social programs, et cetera. So not only is it solving for, maybe it's chronic pain, maybe it's other ailments that you don't want to go to a traditional pharmaceutical medication for. And then on the other side, you also have some of the recreational, where you come back, you have a stressful day, and you pop a gummy, and find some stress relief in that. So it has multiple uses.
Now, I want to talk more about the health benefits and compare it to opioids. I want to ask you one quick question before we take a break. We always love to ask our accomplished guests how they get through the rock bottom times, the challenging times.
Yeah.
How have you done that in your career?
Biggest thing for me is having a good network of people that you can talk to.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in sharing. I'm a big believer in understanding that I don't know everything. And I think that's coming to a realization that you don't know everything, and being able to ask for help. I have a lot of great mentors in my life that I call on. So I think that's number one. And number two, I'm generally a very positive person. There's times where you get down, right? Sure. You can only take so many no's before you start questioning whether or not what you're doing is really meaningful. Right. But it's just trying to stay optimistic. Yeah. There's always a brighter tomorrow.
For sure. I love it. So good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Everyone stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to ask Chris how he avoids burnout juggling all of his entrepreneurial ventures. So we'll be right back. I love it.
Big Flamingo Insurance, what do you want?
Yeah, can we get the auto insurance policy?
Anything else?
Can we add an extra driver?
Number form combo, your premium comes with pickup spot too.
Okay.
When it comes to insurance, you don't have to sacrifice service to save.
Wait, this isn't even the right policy.
Upgrade to NJM and get the 5-star customer service you deserve with discounts you'll love.
Excuse me, Mr. Rollerbird?
No jingles or mascots, just great insurance. NJM. Get a quote today.
You can be confident choosing Farmers Insurance. There's no need to knock on wood.
Perfect.
This is an unnatural amount of natural light.
Thank you.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Hey, Jake from State Farm. I want that personal price plan. So how's this for personal? I draw mustaches on players' faces when they're asleep.
Coach Reed, you don't need to get that personal to get the State Farm personal price plan. It helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Oh.
Coach, it happened again.
I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
Call or click to get a quote today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
She found it. The feeling of finding the psoriasis treatment she's been looking for. So Tic2 is the first of its kind once daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis for the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding that outfit psoriasis tried to hide from you, or finding your swimsuit is ready for prime time.
Dad,
once daily Sotyktu is proven to get more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Sotyktu for clearer skin. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
Hi, my name is Dave, and I am Metro.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I am Metro.
Hi, my name is Josh, and I am Metro.
Hi, I'm George. I am Metro.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I am Metro.
Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm Metro.
Hello, my name is Seven, and I am Metro.
My name is Chris, and I am Metro.
I am Michael Barretto, President and Founder of Metropolis Passenger Logistics, and we are Metro.
Big flamingos.
Welcome back to Moving Mountains. I'm Lance Knaub, and I'm here with Reece. Chris, picking right up where we left off, I know there's been a lot of legislative changes. You were mentioning the federal changes and how that's playing into things.
Yeah, really interesting. So since 1970, when cannabis was considered a controlled substance as a Schedule 1, in the realm of schedules, it goes 1 through 5. Schedule 1 is cannabis, it's LSD, and it's heroin.
Okay.
So you think about those drugs which the government looks at as highly addictive, and there's no medical benefit from using those drugs. So in 22, President Biden made a request to the Department of Health and Human Services to analyze cannabis for its medicinal use. So a year later, they came back and they said, you know what, cannabis should not be a Schedule 1 drug, so it should be a Schedule 3. So then the Department of Health and Human Services made a recommendation to the DEA, because the DEA ultimately has the oversight as to what drugs are scheduled into which category. So they came out last week and they said, listen, we're gonna begin the process of moving cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. So the process has started. Then the next step is there's an open comment period where anybody can come in and make some comments on it, and ultimately it'll be decided. I think there's a 62-day window, and then that will change. And the big benefit to the industry, so going back to if Lance, you and I were operating a dispensary, so unlike a coffee shop, we can't deduct our ordinary business expenses,
right.
And so we're paying tax on our gross revenue. And when cannabis goes from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, that component in the IRS tax code, which is 280E, goes away. Okay. So then now we're on par. And for us as a lender in the cannabis space, that's a tailwind for us because it increases the creditworthiness of our borrowers. Okay. So there's simply more cash at the bottom line to pay interest expense to meet their obligations. Okay. So big changes are coming. We still don't have any insight to the safe banking or safer banking, which is finding its way through Congress and the Senate. I think it's been voted on 9 times in a whole host of different ways and ultimately had failed. That would be the impetus to having the larger financial institutions get involved. So right now it's still very difficult to obtain financing within the cannabis space.
Okay. And I feel like something very important to speak about, obviously you're not a physician, but relative to opioids and other, options, can you speak to, how cannabis compares and the benefits?
Absolutely. And cannabis is the plant itself has, with going from a Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, that'll open up research a lot more than's been done. So we're only scratching the surface on the benefits that the plant can actually provide. When you look at the cannabinoids within the plant itself, THC probably being the most popular, CBD is also a second one, but there are hundreds of different cannabinoids that have different benefits. And from a medical standpoint, as more and more research is done and more studies are conducted, that's going to give us better insight into the effects. But I can tell you, instead of going through and looking at some of the opioids in the market today and becoming physically addicted to them, again, going back to this concept that cannabis has the ability to, whether it's lessen pain, reduce anxiety and stress, for cancer patients, increase appetite. So there's a bunch of different uses that the plant can have in the market, and I'm really excited as we continue to get more research in the space to see exactly some of what's going to happen when we look at those studies that are going to be coming out.
Yeah, that is exciting. And I mentioned I have some friends that are physicians that I've listened to and studied from and feel the same way. So we always, a real passion of mine is entrepreneurs staying healthy while they're scaling their businesses. So from a lifestyle standpoint,
Sure.
how are you keeping yourself healthy while you're navigating all this legislation? And always love to know how much sleep entrepreneurs are getting.
So
especially with a newer business.
Yeah, it's. I got to tell you, I heard a lot of stuff, quotes and everything else, but starting your own business is something that you can work 24/7.
Sure.
Right? There's no shortage of things to do. So when I get up, I can do and need to do all these things, right? Whether it's going from payroll, operation, tax, legal, accounting, and a lot of that's outsourced, but still you need to oversee that, calculating the distributions. So my lifestyle really is focused on health and wellness, and so I'm a big believer of getting to the gym. I work out every day. I like to say there was a time where I was hitting the gym from 6 to kind of 7:30. That's pushed back a little bit now because I'm staying up later. So I do try to get a good night's sleep because mentally I think you need that.
Yeah.
That's sick. Try to focus on 6 hours, but if you can get a little more, sleep is never a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But movement, activity, and then eating right.
Right.
Eating healthy. And this is something that I learned over the last decade. I mean, it's really your movement and what you put into your body, because your body needs nourishment, but it doesn't need necessarily a bag of Pringles, right? It needs actual nutrients. And so, eating the right food, staying active, exercising is the key to how I stay sharp.
Sounds like you're doing all the right things. Anything from a mindset and mental health standpoint?
So I think from the mindset and mental health, and this is a little bit off. I try to, and it doesn't happen every day, but I try to meditate or even take a short nap every day. Because studies have shown that if you can go and unplug for 20 minutes in the afternoon, your productivity increases by 40% for the remainder of the day.
Yeah.
So if you can give up a third of an hour and then increase the rest of the day by 40%, so it's just that mental break that allows you to stay more focused.
Good for you to be able to unplug. That's impressive. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes.
Oh yeah, very difficult.
And your mind is just racing at times.
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything that you want to share with the listeners about how life is like? How do you make the decision you want to actually start a business, and then right now in the startup phase, how you head above water?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that kind of going back to where I was, and not everybody has the, not only your knowledge, but even resources to start your own business, because depending upon what you do, it can be very costly. And in the beginning, you're really just putting out, and you're not receiving anything from a compensation standpoint, other than building the organization. Because you want to take care of employees, making sure they're healthy, happy, and continuing to move in the right direction. But
how many employees do you have?
So we're still small. So I actually hired a sub-manager who is in charge of the due diligence of the fund.
Mm-hmm.
They're based out of New York City. Okay. They're about a $3 billion family that has, and they manage today two non-cannabis publicly traded REITs. And they have 4 institutional funds, of which mine is run pari passu or in lockstep with.
Okay.
And then on our side, we have 3 employees on our side.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's still a smaller organization, but again, at this stage, it's a lot of outsourcing and oversight, and that's the key to what we do.
Yeah, because even the things that you outsource, you have to watch the dashboard, or else,
100%.
you know, you
100%.
can get into trouble.
100%. And it's even, and all that's time consuming, right? When you, especially when you think about taxes, and we file in from a corporate level standpoint in all the different states where we have holdings. So I mentioned those 40 states. Today we have exposure to 26 properties across 4 states. So we have California, Colorado, New York, and Ohio.
Okay. So is there anything that we didn't talk about that you really want to make sure that we
I would
share
just,
today?
well, and I think maybe, and it's from my side, maybe just encouragement, right? So what I always try to get across when I talk to people that have an idea is to never let that idea go out, right? Pursue your happiness. If you can find something that you're passionate about, go after it, right? Go after it, don't give up. And there's gonna be a lot of times where you wanna give up. And when you look back, you might say to yourself, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But you can take the example of Thomas Edison, or there's thousands and thousands of others. But just keep persevering, don't give up, and see your dream come true.
Yeah, and this may be the same as that answer, you know. But if you were able to boil down your best thoughts for people who want to achieve the highest levels of success, you know, anything other than what you just said?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is also staying focused. Life has a way of really taking us off our intended target. And life gets in the way, and it's not a bad thing, right? You have families, kids, friends, COVID, right? Everything happens, and it kind of takes your eye off the ball. So as much as you can, stay focused on your goal. I tend to also write a lot of stuff down, lists, kind of order every morning, getting up and kind of outlining what the day, and at the end of every week, what we did, what we didn't do, and what we need to do as we go into the following week. Organization is key to success. You know, unless you're just lucky and hit the lottery, you need some you need organization, and then surrounding yourself, as I mentioned, I can't stress this enough. Understand that you don't know everything, or nobody knows everything, right? But understanding that you don't know everything, and being able to ask for help and surround yourself with smart people in a network, and always go out and talk to people. You never know where the conversation is going to go. I really enjoy meeting people. I network all the time. I go to as many events as I can. I speak to as many people as I can, because you never know, what insight, and especially for those that are viewing that are looking for an idea. You're going to find that idea most likely by talking to somebody else or sharing a moment with somebody else, and that's going to spawn another kind of point in your head, and that might be the idea that's going to change your life forever, and maybe the world.
Yeah, so good. No, I love that. How can people find out more about you and your offerings? And
absolutely. Very easy. You can go to www.mj-REIT, and it's REIT. So mj-REIT.com. On there we have a Contact Us Now form where you can put in your information. We have a monthly distribution email that we'll send out, so it's not a spam, but we'll send out once a month an update on the fund. My contact information is also on the site. Would absolutely love to talk to anybody that's interested, and have a follow-up conversation and see if it makes sense for your own personal portfolio.
Chris, so much good stuff today.
Thank you,
I can't
Lance.
thank you enough for sharing your life and professional, knowledge and value. So thank you again. We'll continue the conversation, and for everyone listening, please check out Chris, check out the organization, get on their newsletter and their contact list, and we'll see you again next week for our next episode of Moving Mountains.